Look at Syria's current account deficit. So due to the war, they're importing more, right? So this is increased imports. Like I said earlier over here, guns and food, they want more of it, right? So imports will increase. Yeah. So because of this, we go into a negative current account deficit. Or, yeah, negative current account, which is a current account deficit. Because of malnutrition, what ends up happening, first of all, malnutrition is when people don't have enough food. And what this will cause is, let's say they're making good A and good B, so 0. What ends up happening is people start to become inefficient because they're hungry. Either they're not going to work anymore, or they're just not producing anything as good as they could before because they're not in their best shape of to work. So here we have population growth. We're going to use an real GDP, 0, CPI. We'll make them in a recession. So AD, SAS, E1, and an arrow. Natural rate of output. So we're below the natural rate of output. What happens with population growth is that in the long term, the long aggregate supply will increase because, and this happens because there are more people who are available for work. Thing is, there aren't enough jobs to give work to these people. So this will end up just staying there while this increases, right? So this will increase. We're only farther, like if you want to look visually right here, this is the distance to the first natural rate of output, and now this is the new distance. So this is essentially much bigger, and that's what screws up the economy further. The last thing I want to address is the aggregate expenditure and 45-degree line. So we're going to have our 45-degree line, real GDP, 0 CPI, and aggregate expenditure, and then E1. I'm not going to write out all the steps, but I will explain everything. So CPI, and then LAS will be right there because they're in a recession, and a row, and right here somewhere, AD1, SAS. Okay, perfect. So then that's where we are. So let's just pretend that we're producing 1,000 goods. This means that AE is 1,002. Did I write 100? Yes, 1,000. Okay. So we're producing that many goods. When the government spending increases, what's going to happen is aggregate demand will go up. And the reason the government spending will increase, we talked about earlier, is because they need to buy more guns, they need to spend more on the army. So they will spend more. What will first happen is, the prediction here is that the aggregate expenditure will increase. So this will go up. This will in turn, let's say the multiplier is 2, and let's say government spending increases by 500. So 500 times 2 equals 1,000. So what will happen is this will increase by 1,000, so to 2,000. And this will therefore increase to 2,000 as well. So that's our new equilibrium. So let's do the same thing over here. But the thing is, this will be a dotted line because they're not actually there. We'll draw the arrow. E2. And that's that. Same thing happens. Oh, by the way, this will increase by 1,000, real GDP. and our CPI will increase by 500. So here, going back to this, so the real GDP, again, will increase by 1,000. CPI, we'll just pretend that it used to be at 100, and now it's at 130. So after this, what will happen is, since the prices went up, the aggregate expenditure is expected to decrease. So we drop it down to there, AE3, and there's an arrow, and it's E3 right there. So that's a little lower than the GDP we just drew over there. And then we go back to this graph, and we actually move the aggregate demand lower now. So it moves down to here. This is our E3, and the economy is going to try to move to there. And that is the explanation of this graph. So in general, the economy is pretty messed up from everything that's happening. The first video explains exactly why everything happened. Droughts, population growth, all of that was happening, and that made people angry. And then the new president came, and his dad was a cruel person, so he just followed his dad's ways. He didn't really change anything. People were expecting him to be nicer, but he wasn't at all. So people rioted, and this is what happened, and the war still goes on, and it's really sad because they live in a really harsh conditions. As seen, there's footage there of buildings and houses. Those are actually houses in Syria, not random Google pictures of another country. The people who are fighting in the war, the people who are injured, all those, again, are images exactly from Syria. Nowhere else. It's not just a random Google image search up. Those are actually videos that were on the news, and they were talking about the Syrian war, and those footages were from the news. That is it. So I'm glad the 15 days challenge are over. Those are the economic graphs. If you need some statistics, refer back to the first video. Yeah. Hopefully things get better in Syria.